disaster? It takes all of us. There's never been a better time to be proud of what you do.
Action. Camera one, zoom out. Ready, camera two, take two.
How do you make the impossible possible? Partnerships. Combinations stronger than the sum of their parts. No, not like chips and salsa or mac and cheese. Delicious, but irrelevant. These partnerships matter, like really matter. Matter so much that Cisco carries established partnerships with tens of thousands of the world's most brilliant companies. Because ultimately, the world's best partnerships allow us to take on the world's biggest challenges. Think the Wright brothers putting wood and canvas to flight, scientists sequencing the human genome, the Apollo 11 team setting foot on terrain unknown. Yeah, let that sink in. We are more proud than ever of our partnerships. Partnerships that work to plan cities or even save a species. Partnerships that help to connect colleagues, teams, and families across the world. Partnerships that make a difference.
Hi, and welcome to all the partners today joining our live Cisco TV broadcast on the topic of delivering on the promise of customer health. My name is Neil Archer, and I look after the virtual sales and customer success teams here in the Asia-Pacific region. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Adam Holloway. And Adam looks after the annuities business here in Asia-Pacific and also leads a team of specialists focused on supporting our partners in the adopt and renewal sales motions. So today we have an audience of over 350 of our partners registered for today's session, which kind of really talks about the importance that everybody is putting on this topic of delivering on the promise of customer health. And a couple of housekeeping things before we get going. First of all, because we have a Asia-Pacific wide audience, we do have simultaneous translation happening during this broadcast. So on your screen, you will see the options for Korean, Japanese, and Chinese. So you can select the language that you feel most comfortable with. We also are welcoming and encouraging you to ask questions. We do have a panel of Cisco experts on hand that will be live during this session. So as you answer questions in the panel there on your screen, we will be answering those questions real time. And also we'll be taking some of those questions and addressing them live later in the session. So with that, what I would now like to do is introduce Scott Brown, who will be really taking us through the session today. We're very lucky to have Scott with us today, based out of San Jose. And Scott is the Senior Vice President for Global Virtual Sales and Customer Success. Scott has had over 30 years of experience in the IT industry and has had some very key executive roles here at Cisco. Both leading sales teams in the field in all of the segments, enterprise, public sector, commercial and service provider, and having some very significant worldwide responsibilities, leading worldwide distribution and leading worldwide sales enablement. And very close to our heart, Scott, although recently relocating back to San Jose, has spent the last few years based in Singapore and focused on the Asia-Pacific, Greater China and Japan region. And many will know Scott. He initially looked after the partner business group and all of the architectural business here in Asia-Pacific, and also had responsibility for the enterprise segment. So Scott knows Asia-Pacific really well and has, a strong passion for this part of the world and a very, very strong passion for this topic, which is that of customer success and customer health. And Scott, as I said, leads this organization globally. And this organization, Global Virtual Sales and Customer Success, is really focused on helping our customers at Cisco really adopt and get the value out of their out of their Cisco solutions. And we do that both directly, but very importantly, through our partner community. So with that, I would like to hand over and welcome Scott Brown.
Well, thank you, Neil. It's just, from my standpoint, fantastic to have the opportunity to address the partner community in Asia. Having spent 3 years in Asia and coming back here to the U.S. and corporate about a year ago, I miss a lot of the partners that I spend time with. Many of you I had one-on-ones with during our 2 partner summits this year. And a lot of you have been asking about this topic of customer success and wanting to understand it better. So I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to spend time with all of you today and to thank you for investing in understanding this topic better, because the success of this organization and the success of our partner community is really reliant on our ability to transform, our ability to change. So if we take a look at how companies are going to compete in the future, it's really going to be based on experience. And if we think about in our personal lives, the kind of experiences we've had where you get a great product and you get great support and you get great utility out of that because of the support you get from the OEM, you realize that the experience is what you're buying. You're not just buying the product itself. And so folks like Gartner point out that 89% of companies expect to compete mostly on that customer experience in the future versus 36% just 4 years ago. And if we look at Cisco, Cisco is a company that's in transition right now. And you and the partner community are key to this transition. Without you being on this journey with us and helping to drive this change, we will not have success in the marketplace. So as we look at this transition, if you take a look at where Cisco has been historically, and I've been with the company for 20 years, we're incredibly good together with you, the partner, at landing new logos, new paper, new opportunities, new franchises. And we've principally been led by more of a hardware-based model where you're selling something that is a sheet metal with a power supply and with ports and blinking lights. We've been very good at that business, and we've been very good at the land motion. If you look at our business, 90% of our business goes through the partners, and you're tremendous at really landing those new customers and taking those customers over time to make sure that they get the value out of what they bought. And it's been more of a transactional type of business. We focus a lot on the performance that we have in a given month, a given week, a given quarter, and a given year. The movement we're really making is to a completely different model. When I joined Cisco, basically 85 cents on the dollar we would make in the quarter that we were in. We are now moving to a recurring revenue model. And if you take a look at the last quarter that Cisco just reported, 31 cents of every dollar was actually in recurring revenue. That's quite a dramatic shift. If you take a look at the business, we're really moving to more of a hardware, software, and services as an integrated solution, not just hardware alone. And the motion of the future is changing dramatically. The motion is no longer just a landing motion or a sell and forget model, but it's really a motion of land, adopt, expand, and renew. And all of us are going to have to relearn the way that we work with customers, because the nature of how we begin to work in this market is going to change very fundamentally, because the customer is now going to be talking to us about buying a business outcome. I want to increase worker productivity. I am trying to improve the interaction among my development organization. I want to get an outcome that drives for the business a result that they're looking for, not a technology outcome. So as we look at this evolution to land, adopt, expand, renew, we've been very good at land, and we've been pretty good at renew, and we're getting better every day with the help of Adam and his team. But adopt and expand is probably the area we're weakest in. It's the area that we need to do the most development on. It's the area that we at Cisco need to embrace and grow, and you in the partner community are going to need to embrace and grow for us to have success in this new subscription model, this new software model, and this new recurring revenue model. So that's the journey that we're on. It'll take many years for us to realize that vision, but we're already well on our way. If you take a look at Cisco's software revenues today, we're already the 5th largest software company in the world, doing over $5 billion worth of software. We have some of the largest software as a service platforms. If you take a look at WebEx as an example, or you take a look at what we're doing in the IoT space with Jasper, if you take a look at what we're doing across many of our security offerings like OpenDNS, those are all today subscription-based models, software models, and ones that are embracing this new transition. Even if you take a look at the latest acquisition we made, a company called AppDynamics. AppDynamics is a good example of how this will evolve in the future. If you take a look at the average transaction size for somebody buying an AppDynamics solution in the land motion, it's only about $87,000 US dollars. So it's a very small initial land. What happens over time as they adopt that technology, they start to land another 87K and another 87 and another 87 to the point where that grows into a large customer. But it's because of your work in Adopt that gives you the opportunity to expand then into new sites, new locations, new licenses that ultimately will drive the customer to renew. So it's a very different sales motion. And for all of us, we're beginning to learn how this is going to work with our customer. And we're going to need to spread our effort throughout all of those different motions, not just the landing motion as we have historically. So it's a real evolution for us as a company. And the focus of customer success is on this middle. It's not just about getting the initial land, and it's not about making sure that we get the renewal, but how do we maximize the utilization of that technology? And how do we make sure that as we do that, we optimize the opportunity for the customer? Customer success, when I came to Cisco, was really about just doing everything it takes to make the customer happy. Customer success in this context is actually an industry definition that Cisco didn't come up with. In fact, it came out of the SaaS world, where many companies like a Salesforce.com, the folks in the models like SAP and Oracle have developed customer success functions that are all about maximizing utilization and making sure that we optimize that opportunity. So this middle is the area that we're all working on in customer success to get better at. Now at Cisco, we've been working on this, and we're going to continue to invest heavily in this area in the years ahead to get you in the partner community the kind of practices and the intellectual property and the capabilities that you need to be able to exercise this adopt and expand activity. The beginning of that was something called the value framework. The value framework is something that we've developed that we give to you and the partners to use in each and every one of your engagements to make sure with the customer you have a consistent way that you're going to do an adoption motion with them, whether it's an enterprise networking product, it's a security product, it's a collaboration product. Any of those products can utilize the value framework to make sure that as you work through this activities that you're utilizing the best practices of what we've learned. You're doing a good job of helping them on the operationalization of these solutions, especially these software solutions, which can be challenging, driving differentiation for them in the marketplace, as I talked about before, being outcome focused. And that value framework, as I mentioned, can be used in any offer that we have at Cisco. So we've done a lot of work already with customers exercising this value framework. In fact, we've done close to 5,000 engagements now with customers across things like collaboration ELAs, security products like AMP for endpoints, SmartNet Total Care, UC Director, and many other products. And we've learned a lot. And developing the value framework is part of what we're doing to enable you, the partner, to go out there and be successful with your customers as you do this adoption motion over time. What you'll see is that the metrics that we've used in the past are not the metrics that we're going to be using in the future. The metrics that we've used in the past are very much rear view mirror, look behind you metrics like customer sat, like bookings and revenue. These are things that tell you what happened in the past, but they're not predictive. They don't tell you what's going to happen in the future. And the future is really around predictive analytics. Things like Net Promoter Score. So what does a customer say about you when you're not there? How would they advocate for you or not advocate for you in the future? It's a predictor of what the relationship will look like years down the road, not what the relationship has looked like in the past. Customer health scores is another good example. Customer health scores, if you look at them on a 1 to 10 scale, on average are generally around a 2 or a 3, where the customer has not gotten the value, hasn't had the opportunity to implement the technologies the way they want, and with an adoption motion, you can generally take that up to a 6 or a 7, sometimes even an 8. That, again, is an excellent indicator of the expand opportunity, of the overall health of the relationship and where things will go in the future. If you do that well, you're going to maximize the utilization. So if somebody buys 1,000 licenses, you want them to consume those 1,000 licenses and want more. The value comes from the utilization. The value comes from using all the features and capabilities and driving that throughout the relationship. That will ultimately make your renewal a non-event. Renewal will be much easier because the customer has so much value, there's so much stickiness in what you bought that the renewal becomes a non-event. And then you expand into new franchises, new areas, just like I gave the example of App Dynamics. So the future is really predictive analytics and seeing where things are going to go in the future. And as you do the adoption motion, what you'll begin to learn is, let's say I'm doing an adoption motion around something like the malware product, AMP for endpoints. You begin to realize that this customer also has problems with some of the things that they're doing with security gateways to the cloud. And now you see, oh, there's a cloud lock opportunity here because of the work that you did on AMP for endpoints. So you not only expand within the franchise that you won, but you begin to get to adjacent franchises or new areas that you can move into. And in security in particular, this is an area where you get a lot of growth opportunities out of adjacency. Firewall leads to identification of things like SourceFire or IPS, which leads to AMP or malware, which leads to cloud gateways, which leads to things like ICE. There are lots of tangential or new opportunities that come as a result of the adoption motion that become expansion leads for you in the marketplace. So scaling customer success really kind of falls into three key areas from my standpoint. The first one is platforms and analytics. You're going to need to develop platforms, and Cisco is also going to be delivering to you platforms that are going to allow you to begin to interact with your customer in a much deeper way. Telemetry we're developing in our products so that you can see how the customer is using those products. Platforms like a Gain site that are for customer success managers to use as they have those engagements and understand all the steps to success. And then integrating to digital engines like an Eloqua that allow you to begin to have a very robust digital interaction with your customer so that everything that you do over time is not just driven by human interaction, but it's also driven by digital interactions based on analytics. The second area is content. I can't emphasize enough how different content is in the adoption world. So if you looked at a spectrum and you had marketing on one end and you had training on the other end, marketing is very much a linear journey trying to drive brand preference and interactions with folks throughout a buying cycle, right, to drive a brand preference. And training, like learning at Cisco and those types of activities that learning partners do, is very much about learning every single feature, every single capability that you might have in a product. Adoption fits squarely in the middle. It is a non-linear journey. I think about it as a lake, and you have somebody who's drowning in the middle of the lake, and you're able to drop the perfect lifeboat at the perfect time. It's the right size, it's the right capability, it has exactly what you need at that moment. And when you think about the adoption journey, you're going to have many different types of lifeboats. You may have a 4-minute video that explains to you what the product does. You may have a troubleshooting guide. You may have a playbook. You may have various assets at your disposal that are those life rafts that take the customer who's stuck, who's drowning and doesn't have the capability to get to where they want to, and get them moving, right? Back in the boat and roaring and moving towards shore. So the content assets that we're developing for you, the partner, to use, as well as assets that you can take and develop on a bespoke basis for the customer, are an extremely important part of the adoption journey. And finally, people and process. When you think about the kind of individuals that do customer success, they're wired very differently than your salespeople. They're definitely about nurturing that relationship, building a high level of trust, and the processes that they use need to be tried and true so that the customer gets the value out of what they bought. And those individuals have a very different kind of skill set, very different kind of profile, and you need to incent them differently. They should not be primarily incented on bookings and revenue, but actually should be incented on metrics like utilization. Look at the portfolio and how it's being used, the features and capabilities that are being used, and then over time, ultimately, what that net promoter score looks like for the customer. So it's a different set of measurements. It's a different set of skills. And one of the things that we're committed to here at Cisco is to help you to build these practices, right? To have the platforms at your disposal, to develop content that you can use, and to help you to figure out how to hire the right people and compensate them and train them in the right way as you build those practices inside your organization. So, Neil, any thoughts on that so far?
That's. I think you've hit the nail on the head, especially with that lifeboat analogy, Scott. I think that was a really good analogy. And I think the big question that when we're interacting with partners, really when you have this conversation, is a little bit more around the how. So what does that customer success journey look like for the customer? And what does it look like in reality? And how do we scale that? This is a new sales motion. So obviously at Cisco, you've been leading an effort to really, build the core competencies around how we do that. And maybe it would be great if you could now really sort of open up a little bit about, what does this really look like in reality in terms of the way that Cisco are building these practices and the way a partner may do this?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great question. So for me, what really makes it real is when you take a look at the customers based on the segment and type, and what would the experience look like for each of them. So why don't I walk you through a little bit of what the digital journey might look like with these customers, and how you as a partner would interact with those customers, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So the go-to-market strategy, when you take a look at it, is really kind of a pyramid. It's really three different types of roles. The first, what swim lane, as I would call it, to stick with my lake analogy, is basically the high-touch CUSM or customer success manager. These are people that would work with very large customers. And these are individuals that would have a very high-touch capability to go in and work with large enterprises on the adoption motion that they have with your customers. So if you have large enterprise customers, large service provider customers, large public sector customers, you're probably going to have high-touch CUSMs. Virtual engagement tends to be more in the commercial segment, kind of the mid-tier of public sector, maybe the longer tail of enterprise. And this is where you have a virtual capability, somebody that's a desk-based adoption specialist, that's working with your customer on the motion. They can tend to scale to a lot more customers. Where a high-touch CUSM is usually on a 1 to 10 ratio, you can have somebody in the virtual world anywhere from 1 to 100 to 1 to 200. So it gives you the capability to scale that resource across more customers and to get more activities going with them that are more virtual-based or desk-based. And then digital is really for that folks that are in SMB, as well as understanding that digital is important for everybody. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking the no-touch adoption activity only applies to the bottom of the pyramid, and that is absolutely not true. Clearly, at the bottom of the pyramid, it will be a digital-only motion, and it's important to understand that the digital motion is actually not a no-touch motion. When you think about a digital motion, you're actually going to have somebody behind the scenes that are probably going to be data scientists, that are going to be analytics experts, and that they're going to drive digital campaigns through social media and through a lot of the capabilities that are out there today that we haven't explored in the past of ways to communicate with our customers. So the communication with them digitally is an orchestrated activity and one that requires actually great levels of expertise and shouldn't be thought of as a no-touch motion, but think about it as a digital motion that's powered through analytics. So you may have 1, 2, or all 3 of these activities in your practice, depending on the customers that you serve and depending on what's the sweet spot for you as a partner in the marketplace. So what I thought would be helpful is just go through a day in the life of an example of all 3 of those types of customers. So what I'm going to use as an example is 3 customers that are buying a next generation firewall. We've had a lot of success in the marketplace in the last couple of quarters with our new ASA firewall. It is absolutely on fire in the marketplace, so this is a good example of an area where you could begin to have an adoption motion with your customer. So the large customer that we have is Royal Bank of Scotland. The medium-sized customer is Singapore Exchange, and the small customer is County Federal. One thing that I will point out right from the beginning is customers need to get value out of the products that they purchased within the first 90 days. If you don't get value within those first 90 days, the loyalty of that customer drops off dramatically. In fact, customer loyalty can drop by almost 90% if you don't get the initial value out of the product in the first 90 days. So getting to the customer quickly and driving that adoption motion right out of the gate is crucial for you to have the opportunity for those expand leads, for those adoption activities to have meaning to the customer, and for you over time to get that higher net promoter score. So let's look at our customers. First of all, Ken is our customer at Royal Bank of Scotland, and he is served by Dina. And Dina is a high-touch customer success manager, that first swim lane that I talked about earlier. So Dina has 10 different accounts she works with, and Royal Bank of Scotland is one of them. Our second customer is Arjun. Arjun is at Singapore Exchange, kind of a mid-tier size bank, and Kate is her virtual customer success manager. Again, somebody that is a desk-based agent, utilizing all the capabilities, but getting on the phone, talking with people like Arjun and helping them through their adoption journey. And then we have Amy. Amy's at a small bank, an SMB type customer, and she's covered by a digital experience manager named Sue. Again, Sue would be the individual that would be driving and running those campaigns, and behind the scenes, driving the interactions with people like Amy through our digital platforms. So let's go through a day in the life of an interaction with Ken, and then Arjun, and then Amy to sort of make it real for you as to what it would be like as you interact with your customer. So let's start with Ken. So Ken's a network manager, and he has been at Royal Bank of Scotland a long time. And what you'll note is Ken's not a digital native. On a scale of 1 to 10, he's a 4. So he likes to have a little bit more interaction in person, a little bit more interaction over video, a little bit more of a high-touch individual. His health score from a technical assistance standpoint has actually gotten better. We had some problems in the past and resolved those, and now it's an 8. The overall health score is an 8, which is really quite good. So Royal Bank of Scotland has an excellent relationship with you, the partner, and with Cisco. The adoption health score, not bad, at a 6. As I mentioned before, most people start at a 2 or 3 and ultimately get to about a 7 on the adoption health score if they're doing very well. But if you see there's 2 red bars there, so there's a couple of problems there. And one of the things to realize about an interaction from an adoption standpoint is it's not just about the firewall that Ken just bought. It's about everything that Ken owns. Ken's got some collaboration software. Ken's got some security software. Ken has some enterprise networking gear. And when you sit down with them from an adoption standpoint, you want to evaluate the entire relationship, not just the individual product that they bought. So there's a couple of red bars there that we want to explore on adoption health. So Ken is our customer, and Julia, who is the sales rep, actually gets an alert, and it says, hey, we just finished off a deal. We got a next-generation firewall deal at Royal Bank of Scotland, and this is a great opportunity for us. We're excited about that. And Julia reaches out because Dina sees that, oh, look, we got that next-generation firewall. And Julia says, hey, I saw the order that came through the next-generation firewall for Royal Bank of Scotland. Is now a good time for me to set up an initial meeting to get going on that adoption journey. And Dina says, yep, absolutely, it'd be great. Let's get the process started. She says, thanks, I'll come back to you later. Because they already have a relationship, they already know each other. But this is the warm handoff between the sales organization and the adoption motion that you have with your customer. So we get out our value framework that I talked about earlier. And Ken is familiar with this. He's done a number of adoption journeys with you. He understands the value framework. So we're going to sit down with him and immediately start to validate his goals and understand, why did he buy this product? What is he hoping to get out of it? And then driving all the way through to the point that this is embedded in everything that they do, and they're getting the value that they expected out of what they bought. Now, Ken says, I'm really excited about this next generation firewall, and I have a lot of confidence in Cisco, but I could really use a whiteboarding session to kind of walk through how this fits inside my architecture and how all these pieces are going to work together. So we say, great. We validate the business outcomes. We talk about what we want to accomplish. And we get together with Ken in a virtual whiteboarding session. We bring in the experts that you have, and you have a lot of them that are organizations within your teams, generally your engineering organizations, your CCIEs, do a virtual whiteboarding session. You can also do demos. Remember that you got the Cisco D Cloud out there. And for a lot of customers, taking them through a more detailed demo is a great way of helping to kick off the adoption journey and understanding everything that's possible. So we have 3D renderings of products that are coming out of the marketing organization that you see on the right. We have the ability to do annotation, as you see on the left, like we're doing with Sparkboards that are available today. This is all technology that is at your disposal and things you can use with your customers each and every day. So after the whiteboarding session, we do a little adoption analytics because we want to figure out what are those couple of red bars that we have going on, because we've kicked off the adoption journey for the next generation firewall, but what we haven't done is figured out where those other red bars are. So as you see scrolling down the screen, this is telemetry coming to us from the customer that indicates, hey, we got a problem with WebEx. And as you look at it more closely, what you realize, it's actually not a problem with the WebEx product, it's the integration between telepresence and WebEx. So we said, okay, now we understand what one of those red bars is. Let's get on with one of our technical experts, which we do, Victor Kim, and we have a conversation about what's the challenge that we have in the integration between WebEx and TP. We realize the call manager isn't set up properly. It's not programmed properly for those two to interact together. We say, can we get that fixed? Absolutely. On the line, they get the customer, they put that fix in place, and that red bar goes to green, and that adoption journey becomes one that's a positive journey for them. And we realized that the problem really wasn't WebEx, the problem was the integration with TP. This is the value of telemetry, having that intelligence about what's happening with the customer, and it's also the value of looking at the customer relationship, not just for what you're selling today, but actually what you have holistically within the relationship. So this is the interaction that would happen between the account manager and the high-touch customer success manager on adoption analytics. So that was Ken at Royal Bank of Scotland. Let's move on to Arjun at Singapore Exchange. So Singapore Exchange is doing pretty well. We have a 7 account health score. We have an 8 adoption health score. Unfortunately, we still have 1 red bar there, so we got a little work to do to figure out what's going on with Arjun. Arjun's more of a digital native. He's a 6, so he does like to work digitally, but not as much as some, but definitely one we can begin to work more in a digital form factor with. And he as well had some problems with his technical activities that were addressed, but it's downstroking a little bit lately, and we want to keep an eye on that because we may have some issues from a technology standpoint and a support standpoint for Arjun. So Arjun is engaged by his virtual customer success manager. And you can begin to implement tools that we have developed. And one of them that's really key to this journey that's available to you today is called Lifecycle Advantage. Now, for those of you that were at Partners Summit, I was on main stage and we announced Lifecycle Advantage. This is an analytics platform that allows you to begin to guide the adoption journey with your customer. In fact, it does even more than adoption. It allows you to drive install-based campaigns. It allows you to do things around renewal activities. It's quite a powerful tool and capability. But in this situation, we're using it for adoption. And we sent an automated email that was personalized to Arjun that came under your banner, under the logo of you, the partner, and Cisco together to say, hey, congratulations, you just bought your next generation firewall. We're here to help. There's lots of assets at your disposal. Again, automatically coming out of Lifecycle Advantage when you set up this digital platform for all of your customers. So then you can have a click to chat. And that click to chat can get a click to chat directly to you as the partner, or can go to a help desk from Cisco that says, hey, I want to get started and I need a little bit of help. I'm a virtual served customer. I may need to do a little click to chat, a little quick demo. I need some assets that are going to help me on this digital journey. You have the capability to build that into Lifecycle Advantage so that when they click on that box, either somebody at you, the partner, can answer that click to chat, or we at Cisco can answer that to allow you to be very responsive to the customer in that adoption journey, especially during that first 90 days, as I talked about earlier. So Arjun says, hey, I got your welcome email. Can you walk me through the next config steps? Yep, Arjun, happy to do that. And off they go in the click to chat. Now, as we look at Arjun and the relationship, we see that there's definitely improvements in the health score based on our digital engagement with them. The health scores are getting better over time, and we begin to exercise lots of capabilities. One example here is a video way of interacting called OneMob. We also have things like Let's Get Started guides, which might have a 4-minute video that explains what the new firewall does. It has a take the tour to help you understand the overall product. It has a troubleshooting guide. It even has training courses that you can be linked to that all come out of this digital journey. You define what assets you want to go to the customer and when, and then you have the capability to launch those out of Lifecycle Advantage. Another example of this is the ability to use Spark as part of the adoption journey. So many of you will start to build practices in this area. And what we made as an offer here is to say to Arjun, hey, would you like to join the Spark room of other customers that are implementing the new ASA firewall just like you? He says, yeah, absolutely. Love to be a part of that. Be a great way to see what other people are doing, to ask questions. And it becomes a self-supporting mechanism by having these Spark communities out there. We also realized as we went through the conversation with Arjun that we had other things to work on around AMP. So he had bought AMP, but he was stalled in his process on implementing that. So we used this digital journey to actually help get his AMP going. That was one of the red bars that you saw earlier that he was stalled on, in addition to what he's doing around next generation firewall. So again, not just what we bought today, but the overall relationship. So let's look now at Amy Dolan, more of an SMB type customer. So very good health score at a 9, an 8 from an adoption standpoint, a couple areas we need to work on with her. She is a digital native. Look at that. That's a 9. She wants to work with you digitally. She does not want to actually have to pick up the phone, talk to people, or see people. She wants to work with folks in a digital manner and has pretty good overall support scores. So a good relationship, but definitely somebody that has sent signals about how they want to work digitally. And one of the things you learn about as you get into the digital world is people leave a digital footprint behind them. So you can actually calculate people's capability and their desire to interact digitally based on the footprint they leave in the cookies, the digital interactions on your website, where they navigate to, how they buy. So you can begin to show up in a way that's appropriate for your customer and gives them value in the way that they want to see it. So Sue, who's the digital experiencing manager, sends off a campaign to Amy that's personalized to her that says, hey, Amy, it's never been a better time to use your next generation firewall. Here's some resources for you to get started, taking a tour, getting a guide, maybe getting certified on this, and helping her to begin that process of moving forward. And again, these can all be co-branded campaigns, co-branded landing pages that we would do together with you as the partner on Amy's account. So she receives that automatic personalized page for onboarding, and Amy says, hey, that's great. Now I have a low-touch, self-guided adoption journey. I have a call to action. I know what things I need to do, and I know where I can go to get help. So this is a very dynamic activity because as they explore things digitally, you can begin to provide them different types of tools and resources depending on what they do. If she dives deep into packet filtering or she dives deep into activities around SNMTP, if she begins to go into areas that are of interest, you can begin to add to that digital journey new assets, new capabilities, drop some more of those lifeboats that I talked about earlier that can help Amy accelerate that journey from an adoption standpoint. So what you learn from these kind of interactions, whether it's Ken, whether it's Arjun, whether it's Amy, is there is a lot of digital data that you begin to understand about that journey. How many people read the emails that you said? How many clicked on the videos that you created? What was the average amount of time that they viewed that video? They clicked on a webinar link. How many people did that or actually registered? How many people clicked on the guide? What were the most popular videos that were out there? So people leave a big digital footprint behind them that is absolutely gold for you to use in the adoption journey and show up in a way that's appropriate for them and show up in a way that's powerful for them in allowing them to move quickly and effectively through getting value out of that product so they can then move on to the next opportunity that they have. And great adoption really drives expansion opportunities. So after Ken got through that next generation firewall implementation, we actually expanded to add AMP for networks. So the advanced malware product was something that we then worked with Ken on and sold to him as an adjacent thing that he could put into his environment. Arjun actually upgraded to ASA with firepower services, so added the firepower services to his firewall. And our friend Amy actually refreshed her Cisco router because she wanted to get Stealth Watch, and she wanted to have the capability on the edge of the network to do Stealth Watch. So that adoption is not only important in terms of realizing the value for the customer on what they bought, but it will lead to many new opportunities for you from an expansion standpoint that you will bring back to your landing sales force and have your landing sales force pursue with the customer. So, Neil, did that kind of make it real to your question and understanding what a day in the life would be like for a customer?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Scott. That was incredible in the way that you kind of talked about the different swim lanes. And maybe I can ask two questions. Maybe the first question is, obviously, I think, a lot of people in the audience are looking at what you've just presented and probably asking the question, how real is that? Are we delivering this today? Is this real today in terms of the capabilities that we are offering to partners in this part of the world here in Asia Pacific, Greater China, and Japan?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And the answer is the Lifecycle Advantage program that I talked about is available today, including in Asia Pacific and Japan. We have resources available. So we have what's called Success Hub we're going to be talking about that we launched as well at Partner Summit. That is a portal that has all those best practices that I talked about earlier. So the value framework, the playbooks, the videos, the best practices are all there. And then we're also beginning to run adoption workshops where we're bringing partners in and we're helping to train them on how to build the practices, how to hire the right people, what's the right way to compensate them, how do you build practices around what we do at Cisco. And then finally, there's the Lifecycle Advisor program, again, available in Asia Pacific today, where you can begin to get compensated for the adoption activities that you do. Certainly, the telemetry piece that I talked about is a work in progress. That is something at Cisco that some products, like a WebEx as an example, we do have telemetry on, but routers and switches today, we do not. In the future, we will. And our goal is to have telemetry across all of our products. So in that respect, that is definitely a work in progress and something in the future. But even in that situation, you can do a customer engagement where you put a collector on the network and you can pull the telemetry from the network manually so that you can do an adoption journey without having that to be automated. So you shouldn't look at that as something that stops you. In fact, those 5,000 engagements I talked about that we already did, almost every one of them, we did a manual pull with the customer or the telemetry and the data on how they're using our products to do the adoption journey. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, definitely. And you can really start to see there how you can scale these practices using different sales motions. So I guess, and you touched on it there, and I was looking at the Q&A panel here just live, and one of the questions, coming up, and what you were leading to is, what is Cisco doing today to really help our partners develop adoption and customer success practices? And if they do, what's going to be the impact for them?
Yeah, absolutely. If I would kind of boil it down to three key areas that if I were you, and again, spending the last 3 years in Asia, I think I understand really well the partner community and what your capabilities are. I don't think we're more dependent on partners anywhere in the world than we are in Asia. And we have amazing partners. Being the partner leader there, I understand your capabilities. So if I was to boil it down to kind of three key things for you, the first would be understand the value framework. Go to the adoption workshops, really understand the capabilities that are there. The second is Success Hub. Success Hub is just a fantastic resource that allows you to understand better how to build an adoption practice. And all the things that we have learned, we've put into Success Hub. There's no charge for this. This is all available to you today. You register it. It's now a complete digital library of everything that you need to know around building an adoption practice. And then finally, Lifecycle Advantage. For those of you that want to put the effort in of really utilizing the digital platforms that we have today, Lifecycle Advantage is an amazing platform, an amazing tool. So you do need to go in and get your customer contact data up to speed, and you need to do the right things in terms of the entitlement of those customers. But once you do that setup work, you now have a digital platform that you can really utilize. So that's, if I was you, where I would start is kind of in those three key areas, because I think that's the opportunity from a customer standpoint. What are the rewards? Why would I do this, right, as a partner? Clearly, it can reduce your cost to serve. The most expensive motion that you have and that we have is landing new customers, right? The landing motion is the most expensive thing we do. If we drive adoption and we drive high renewal rates and high expansion leads and really drive that customer relationship to a new level, it reduces our overall cost to serve. It helps us to build that recurring revenue engine. Where today 31 cents of every dollar is predictable for Cisco, up from 15 cents on the dollar, that can be the same equation for you going to 40 or 50 cents on the dollar in the years ahead. It'll help with customer retention. It clearly drives utilization. Expansion opportunities should be a key part of what you drive. If we take a look just at the last year, we had about $585 million worth of expansion leads in FY16. We're on pace this year to do about $850 million in expansion leads, and we're just getting started. So again, the expansion opportunity is great. It does differentiate you in the market. So the experience that you deliver to your customer is going to differentiate you versus other partners and differentiate you versus other OEMs that are out there in the marketplace that we are jointly competing with. It does create a completely different customer experience and does drive customer loyalty. So from my standpoint, the rewards are tremendous. If we take a look where the market is going, where our customers are going, they're demanding this of us. This isn't an optional thing, I believe, for us. I think for us together to have success in the marketplace, we're all going to have to evolve to this new model. So Neil, I'll hand it back to you, and maybe you can kind of take us into the Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And I think, certainly from the discussion so far, it's very clear that I think Cisco and our partner community certainly have to look at things differently to what we have in the past and really think about the adopt and expand sales motions, because they're going to be critical. I love this quote here from Satya Nadella, which sort of brings it home to me. Revenue is a lagging indicator. Usage is the new leading indicator. And I think that's what really says it in terms of how we need to think differently. Now, we do have a number of questions, and we'll go to some Q&A live in a second. But before we do that, I do want to just jump into two key calls to action. So, Scott obviously touched on a couple of them earlier, but, what I'd like to, recommend to all the partners today is to do two things from this session. Number one is to go to Success Hub and subscribe. This is a fantastic resource for you all. There is, an amazing amount of best practice in that Success Hub that you can leverage immediately. The URL is there, and we'll send that to you afterwards. So please do go and subscribe to Success Hub. And then secondly, at the conclusion of this, there will be a survey to complete, which is there on the screen. And I would ask that if you can do that for two reasons. Number one, obviously, we want the feedback in terms of your takeaways from today in how this worked. But very importantly, we've got a question in there also that asks if you would like a Cisco representative to talk to you more about what we can do to work together in the area of customer success and customer health. So if you can fill that in, then we will get in contact with you very quickly. So with that, let's go into some of the Q&A, and I will pass over to Adam to maybe have a look through and take some questions to Scott.
Scott, the questions are coming in fast and furious. I think we have over 25 now that are being responded to live in the Q&A. We're not going to ask you 25, don't worry.
Okay,
Angela,
no problem.
Angela responding to questions is typing as quickly as she can. So just to give her some space there, I'll give you two here that came up a bit earlier, but may be worth recapping. Budgets are tight. How do I build this practice without throwing people at the problem?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, right? And if we look at the way that we're going to work in the future, this digital capability and the way that we're going to integrate with our customers is fundamentally actually going to provide, I think, a productivity gain for all of us. So today, let's face it, our interactions with our customers are very heavy-handed. They're very manual. They're very labor-intensive. But when you begin to go on these journeys and you use digital as an enablement activity, we anticipate up to 80% of the touches that you're going to have with a customer in the future are actually going to be digital touches. They're not going to be human touches. When you really get moving with this motion, that creates actually budget relief. It creates efficiency in your model and allows you to create customer loyalty and stickiness that you don't have to go out there and land new customers to replace the ones you've lost. One of the key tenets of this is holding on to your customers, right? 90+% renewal rates and retention rates are the key. And if you can drive a lot of those interactions digitally, you have a lot of efficiencies to the model, and it actually becomes economically even better. So hopefully that answers the question, Adam.
Absolutely. You also touched on this a bit earlier in the broadcast, in the presentation. Why is Cisco investing in building this adoption practice and driving partners to do the same?
So fundamentally, we believe that this is going to be the key to us being successful in the marketplace together, right? Yeah. If we do not invest in this, you cannot be in the software business and not have customer success, period. So it isn't like it's an option. I mean, it's something, frankly, we're a little behind on. It's something that we need as an OEM to do a better job of helping you, the partner, on developing the assets, the practices, the capabilities. But one of the things that Cisco does exceptionally well is really developing those together with you as a partner, right? So you see a lot of OEMs out there that have developed this customer success motion like a Salesforce.com, but it's a very direct motion to the customer. It's not a partner-led motion. You know, if you know Cisco, which you guys do, we're very partner-led, right? 90+% of our business is partner-led, and it's a higher percentage even in Asia Pacific, right? It's nearly 100%. So from our standpoint, you're the critical go-to-market. If we want to be in the software business, if we want to be in the subscription business, if we want to be in the SaaS business, you have to build a customer success capability. It's absolutely crucial. So it's key for delivering the customer experience that they're going to demand of us. And I think it's key for where the market is going. And from my standpoint, getting the value out of all these new platforms. You're going to see so much innovation come out of Cisco in the next 6 months. I mean, it's just going to blow your mind. And so much of it is moving us towards this new model. So building this motion is going to become more and more important because of all the technology capabilities that we're going to bring to market over the next 6 to 12 months. So, Adam?
That differentiation is absolutely critical. The fact that this is a partner-led motion, we are investing in the partner community. Having worked at a partner that, you know, as I talk to my partners across Asia Pacific and China, that means the most, right? Is that we're doing this with you, hand in hand. So perhaps to land this, who can I work with in my country to help me develop my practice?
Great question.
Who can I work with in my country to help me develop my practice?
Yeah, I mean, for every one of you as a partner, it really comes down to the relationship that you have with your PAM or your VPAM, right? So most of you are working with a partner account manager, either virtually or in person. That's the first point of contact for anything, right, at Cisco. Whether it's what you're doing in the land motion, how you develop customer success, how you improve your renewal practice, that PAM is your single point of contact. So start with the PAM. They're clearly going to begin to engage lots of resources in my organization that are there in Asia Pacific and are trained and available today. They can engage the system to help in terms of the activities we want to do, but start with your PAM or your VPAM because they're your single point of contact in the relationship. That makes sense, Adam?
Absolutely, Scott. Thank you.
Excellent. So with that, what I'd like to do, Scott, if I can, is maybe just recap on the call to action, just on the next slide. And then what I will do is just come back to you to just ask for some closing comments that you may have in addition to this for the partner community here in Asia Pacific. So, you know, we heard a lot there, just even in those questions about the interest in how do we get started. So I just want to reiterate that the Success Hub is a fantastic place to start. And there are great videos, there are blogs, there are case studies, there are white papers in there that you can access immediately to understand, you know, exactly how you can start to build this type of practice and what you can get from Cisco in terms of support. And then secondly, if you would like to have a conversation with the people here at Cisco in terms of specifically around any of these motions, around the adopt, the expand order renewal sales motion and what we can do to work together, then please let us know and we'll come back and work with your PAM to facilitate that conversation. So with that, Scott, just back over to you.
Yeah, well, first of all, again, I want to thank all the partners that have taken the time to invest in learning more about the customer success motion. I will tell you that the years ahead of us right now are going to be some of the most exciting years in your relationship with Cisco. The capabilities that we're going to begin to deliver and the ability that you have to transform that customer relationship are unlike any I've seen in the last 20 years. So it's going to require a lot of effort, but we're really good at this, right? I mean, if you look at the transitions we've gone through from being a routing company to routing and switching to adding in firewalls, then we got in the service provider market, then we got in the telephony market, then we got in the server market. We have gone through a lot of transitions together, but this is a big one. This is one that's going to require all of us to rethink the way we work together and the way we work with the customer. But I will tell you, the reward for this will be unprecedented. The opportunity for the depth of relationship, we are moving up the stack in terms of the application layer, to the relevancy with the CXOs, to the relevancy with the business decision makers, and the impact that we can deliver for our customers is unlike anything we've ever done. So it's a huge opportunity for us, but it does require all of us to change. And it does require us at Cisco to step up our game, to deliver more to you in the partner practices. And on those practices that we've talked about, you can build services. All those services opportunities that you enjoy today around implementing in the CapEx-based world or the on-premise world are still there and available for you as you move into the software and subscription world, but they expand exponentially as you get into new areas. There are new practices, new opportunities. You can begin to do software development. You can begin to do ISV, API integration. There's all kinds of new revenue streams and services, which is crucial for you as a partner, right? When you wake up every day and you think about that Cisco relationship, one of the key parts is services. And there are adoption services that you can build out of this that are going to be fantastic new revenue streams. So it's a new world. It's an exciting one. Expect us, Cisco, as your partner, right, to deliver great innovation, unbelievable innovation coming in the years ahead. And I see the roadmap. I see what's coming. You're going to be really excited by that. But we all have to pivot to this new sales motion of land, adopt, expand, renew. And we have to commit ourselves to a new way of working with our customers. And if we do that, I think we're going to have tremendous success together in Asia Pacific and Japan, as well as in Greater China. So hopefully that's a good summary, Neil and Adam, and I'll throw it back to you to wrap things up.
Thank you, Scott. And again, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to your all team back here in the partner community here in Asia Pacific. And thank you to all of the partners that invested their time today to get this, a little bit of a taste of what we're doing around customer success and why customer health is so important going forward. Thank you very much. And again, please do complete the survey at the end of this session. Thank you for your time.